Um, Welcome. My name is Rahul Lakhote, and today we have a research scholar, Abhyuday Titish. He's from VNIT, Nagpur, India. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Excellent. So, tell me more about yourself first.
Well, Rahul, as you said, I am a research scholar pursuing my PhD in the field of construction technology and management at VNIT Nagpur, India. I'm currently in my third year, and prior to joining here as a research scholar, I was employed at a private institute in Bhilai and was working as an assistant professor and acting head of department for almost 8 years.
Excellent. Very good. And based on my initial thought with you, I think you have developed some excellent admixtures and use of fly ash, and you are also holder of one of the patents. So I'm very excited to know more about your research work and what you've done in the past. So I think maybe the best way to start, I guess, is to just give me an overview of what your research subject is all about. What do you do, and what does it cover?
Well, to start with, you need to understand why I picked up the research idea that I'm currently working on. See, many studies in the past have been focused on, incorporation of supplementary cementitious materials, waste materials such as fly ash, GGBS, risers, and so on. But all those studies were either done by replacing the traditional cement, the ordinary Portland cement that is being used for construction. Those studies were either based on replacing the cement, or those studies failed to achieve the necessary strength requirement of concrete. So there was a general remark that if you replace the traditional cement with these supplementary materials in a larger proportion, you will not get the required strength. Then came in the age of geopolymers, which was a revolutionary achievement at the time. But as I said, the practical aspect of geopolymers is still a bit blurry. Geopolymers are pretty costly, and the chemicals used for geopolymer activator solution are a little bit hazardous. So when we address the practical applicability, the feasibility of this idea, it gets slightly contorted. So my aim was to incorporate fly ash and bottom ash, which is a byproduct of thermal power stations in India, and not just replace cement in the traditional concrete mix, but address the issue of sand scarcity. See, in India, I'm pretty sure this is implemented worldwide. However, in India, for the past 10 to 15 years, the Supreme Court of India has banned river mining because it alters the natural flow of river. And because of this ban on river mining, the cost of good quality construction river sand is rising rapidly, which led to illegal sand mining, the generation of sand mafia, and so on. Ultimately, the point comes down to this, that there is a scarcity of good quality construction sand, and that led to the increase in its cost. On the other hand, the huge quantities of waste that were being generated in India were still being dumped in landfills and so on. So that needed to be addressed, because landfilling is not a permanent solution, as it leads to various environmental hazards. So I tried initial lab trials by incorporating the fly ash and bottom ash in a traditional concrete mix as a replacement of natural river sand. But as observed in the past studies, when I carried out the replacement for greater than 50%, that means 50% sand was replaced by ash, I observed a stagnating decrease in the overall strength, which motivated me towards analyzing the effect of admixtures. See, admixtures are chemical compounds that are added to concrete to enhance its overall properties, both in the fresh state as well as in the hardened state. So I analyzed multiple products that are commercially available on the field, and I evaluated them in terms of both concrete performance as well as their chemical structure. And I realized that if you increase the dry material content, or as we commonly call it, the solid content of any polycarboxylate admixture, PC based admixture, its performance get increased multifold. So that's how the idea of my research came into practice. I developed a new superplasticizer with a very high solid content that is not available commercially in the market. And this admixture was then added to a concrete mix that contained very high amounts of ash. See, in my mix design, I incorporated around 500 to 600 kgs of ash per cubic meter of concrete, which has not been achieved in the past in a commercially feasible manner. Geopolymers have done this, but they were costly. On the other hand, with incorporation of my admixture and using ash as a substitute to traditional river sand, the overall cost of concreting was reduced by almost 400 rupees, 400 INR per cubic meter, which is almost 10 to 15% of the cost of concreting. So that's how it came in the market.
And that's very good. And because one of the advantages in apart from saving cost is also it adds to sustainability. It reduces the waste, and waste can be reused in construction materials, right?
Exactly. We are not just disposing of the waste in this technology. We are actually consuming it in concrete in a commercially effective manner too. So it's a win-win situation for both. The sustainability aspect gets addressed. The practical feasibility in terms of cost, it also gets addressed, and all it needs is a little tweak. That is, you don't need any specialized machining equipment to develop this mix design. Any RMC plant, any ready-mix concrete plant that is working as of today all over the world can implement this idea. They just have to change the mix proportion, mix design, and incorporate a newly developed superplasticizer, or as I call it, novel or new generation superplasticizer.
So tell me, how did you plan your research? Great idea. I think it will make a big impact on many fronts. It will save the cost. It will actually result in usage of waste, solve a lot of problems, reduce the load on landfills, and provide some downstream economic benefits to the power plants as well. So a lot of good things. But in a research environment, you need proper planning. So how did you kind of went through the process of, this is the problem, this is how I should plan my research, and this is how I should come about so that I could reach a logical conclusion to my assertions?
Exactly. Well, to begin with, I obviously carried out some literature review to find out the gaps that I just mentioned. High cost and scarcity of river sand, effective utilization of ash in the country, and so on. So after finalizing down the research lacunas, I initially started on with laboratory experimentation on paver blocks. Concrete M40 grade paver blocks were developed, and as I said, initial lab trials were a huge failure. I was not able to achieve the required strength even after 90 days. In terms of concrete, the 28 days strength is actually the required compressive strength, and I wasn't able to achieve that strength even after 90 days, which was pretty discouraging. But further literature review also revealed some interesting things, that if you're adding certain chemical additives, for example, I'll name one, others are also listed in my publication as well. The one I'm talking about will be polyethylene glycol, PEG. PEG is actually a very commonly occurring material. It is also being used in food processing and drug manufacturing industries. But if you are using heavy molecular weight PEGs, that is PEGs with molecular weights greater than 6,000, if you are using those products, they actually increase the curing potential of the component. These PEG components act as internal curing compounds when added to concrete. And since they are providing the curing from within the concrete itself, the rate of strength gain was actually observed to be higher. So using this and some other additives that I found from literature review, I actually started experimentation with developing a new super plasticizer. I picked up a commercially available super plasticizer and started building up on it. I carried out free radical copolymerization of PEG along with the commercially available product in presence of other retarders and additives which are added to concrete. And I'm pretty sure I have developed almost 400 to 500 different proportions of admixture and came down to the one which was optimized, which was best suited for concrete containing very high proportions of fly ash. And after developing the same, I again recarried the experimentation with paver blocks. I observed a very drastic change in the results. Prior to the addition of this super plasticizer, I wasn't able to attain the strength even after 90 days, as I explained earlier. However, using the same mix design, the same quantity of cement, and by just replacing the conventionally used admixture with the one I developed, I was able to attain the target strength within 3 days, which was very good in terms of the technical performance. So once this was achieved, I also carried out case studies of the same before actually finalizing down the objectives of my PhD topic. Up until now was the trial studies that I carried out, but once the pavers were a success, it also got accepted in the market after the case study I did. It was carried out at Ultracute Industries in Butibori. It's actually a place near Nagpur, and the Ultracute Industries is actually a large-scale manufacturer of paver blocks. So we proposed the admixture to them and asked them to carry out a case study. And when they were happy with the results, then we moved on to concrete pavements. And that is where the actual magic happened. When I incorporated the new generation admixture, I was able to not just consume a very high quantity of fly ash and bottom ash, I was also able to actually reduce the overall cost of concrete production. So actually it's a multi-fold benefit. You not only address the issue of sand scarcity, you not only make it commercially viable, you not only make it sustainable since you are consuming a large quantities of ash, but all of this combined, you are also reducing the carbon dioxide emission from concrete production. Since you are using a very high quantities of fly ash and bottom ash, which are pozzolanic materials which contribute to the strength, I also observed that I could reduce the cement content of the mix, which again is not only environmentally efficient but also cost effective in nature. So multiple field trials were also carried out after successful laboratory experimentation. I evaluated my developed concrete containing the new generation admixture for almost 1.5 years to ascertain the long-term behavior aspect, not just the physical and mechanical properties, but also the durability properties of the concrete. And when all of them revealed satisfactory results, I carried out 2 field experimentation. One was carried out at Dhariwal power plant in Chandrapur. It's actually a thermal power station, and they laid a 500-meter stretch of PQC, pavement quality concrete road, with 100% replacement of sand with bottom ash. Past studies in the area although have suggested using fly ash, but this much quantity of bottom ash per cubic meter of concrete was never reported in previous researches. So Dhariwal actually gave me my first successful field result, and later on we tied up with NTPC Khargone, that is National Thermal Power Corporation in Khargone, Indore, and they not only experimented with pavement quality concrete but also worked with structural concrete as well. And they also found pretty encouraging results. This and the laboratory experimentation we did, the publication that was followed post the laboratory experimentation, this all helped me gain a visibility in the market, not just in terms of some research scholar, but also who has carried out some field experimentation of his proposed idea. Right now, we are in consultation with Balco, that is Bharat Aluminium Company in Korba, and various other NTPCs and power stations also, who actually want to undertake this case study. So, under the supervision of my PhD supervisor, Dr. Swapnil Vanjari, I am undertaking multiple field visits as of today. And we basically go to the power plants, tell them about the idea that you can utilize the ash in this high quantity, and you just have to add so and so component, so and so, this admixture that I developed. And you have to tell them how to produce that admixture, how to incorporate it into concrete, and that's it. Multiple case studies will be followed. As I said, 2 are already completed, 2 are in pipeline, and at least 4 or 5 are in talks. I'm hoping we'll be able to conduct more field implementation, and based on the results of those field implementation, our goal, my as well as my PhD supervisor's goal, is to get this technology, get this idea of incorporating ash in concrete, get this idea actually incorporated into the international codes. We'll be trying to get this idea, written down in various IS as well as IRC codes. And when it gets published, I know it's a time-consuming process, but when it gets published, everyone in the market, everyone in the sector of construction industry will benefit from it, as well as huge quantities of ash will be required. So see, if you're telling someone that whatever work you are doing, I tell you another way to do the same, but it will be cheaper. Everyone will jump to the cheaper alternative. And since it is also environmentally efficient, this idea will also be supported by the government as well. So it's a win-win situation for all. And this I'm praying, I'm hoping that this idea, once it gets kicked off, it will actually solve the dire issue of effective ash utilization, not just into the country, but all around the world, which will be a huge win in terms of environmental war that we are fighting today.
Very good. Now, I think what you're just referring to is scaling up. You have an idea.
Exactly.
What I like about your work is you took an idea from the concept. Initially, it didn't work for you. You never gave up. You did multiple 400 odd admixture combinations, and then you kind of honed down into which works. So you did optimization on the lab scale, and then when you went into the field and you did field trials with some partners for paving industry as well as for the paver industry. And then you have partners on the upstream side like your NTPC who can supply you with fly ash. You have your super novel admixture, and then you can convert that into a really scalable solution for the market. So my next question to you is this: like, if this has to become, you also mentioned various partners, right? You have Dr. Vanjari, I hear helping you out, all the industrial partners. So it's very good that people are helping you out, and you're getting good traction. Good job on that. Congratulations. Not many PhD students are able to do that. So very proud of you, and good job.
Thank you.
So imagine if we need to get to the next scale. What are the scalable objectives, or how big this can be? Like what are we talking about in terms of change that you foresee in the industry, number one, and second, what sort of infrastructure we need? I mean, these are all still lab tests, field trials. We still need manufacturing. We still need upstream investment for manufacturing of admixtures. So there is investment and infrastructure that will be required on the upstream side, as well as on the downstream, on the implementation side as well. What sort of things you have in mind for these things to actually materialize?
Okay. For upscaling this, let me first talk about the advantages of the same. For example, if you are developing a 1 kilometer stretch of 2-lane road, 1 kilometer stretch of concrete pavement, double lane. The approximate consumption, if you are using 500 kg of fly ash or bottom ash per MQ, will be approximately 1,000 tons per kilometer. So this will, this will be a really huge step. 1,000 tons of fly ash in just concrete. Other ways that we consume fly ash is soil stabilization and backfill material and so on. Those materials will be there. This will be an additional advantage of 1,000 tons per kilometer stretch. So the first way, avenue when we upgrade is the NTPCs and other industries, other stakeholders that develop this fly ash and bottom ash can actually root out a map, and just like cement is being marketed right now, they can also market fly ash or bottom ash. So a waste that is currently being disposed of in landfills and such can actually generate some revenue for the country, can actually contribute towards the GDP. So that will be the first thing. The second, as you said, what will be the the overall range, overall market cap when I propose this idea? I'll talk about a multinational company named Fosroc. I don't know whether you have heard of it, but Fosroc, BASF and Sika, these are actually some MNCs that are leaders in the field of admixtures all around the world. Doesn't matter whether it is India, Canada, US or whatnot. These are multinational giants, and they overall control the market as far as the concrete admixtures are considered. So my aim is to actually tie up with these companies, or tie up with any other construction chemical manufacturer, and upscale my idea. As of today, the most I have developed is 100 kgs of admixture per batch. Right? I didn't have a huge setup. I was again working in the college laboratory, so my scale was limited. But when we are talking about these commercial manufacturers, the scale is the limit is the sky. They can produce vast quantities of this admixture, and they can supply it not just pan India but pan world. They can supply it all over the world, market it effectively, and the overall revenue, as is it is published somewhere on the internet. I don't actually recall the source. It's a report from Reuters. They estimated that by 2030, the overall chemical admixture market will be around $20 billion US. So once this idea gets implemented, this market will be my prime target. I'll be aiming to tie up with the commercially available manufacturers and promote it on a larger scale. Since the case studies will be a success by then, they already are, but multiple others will be carried out. Since those studies will be a success, my work will be to start from retail sector and upscale my work to large scale projects as well, such as construction of roads and dams and all these projects, and use this admixture along with heavy quantities of ash. So that way, the market sector we already talked about will be more than $20-30 billion, and the consumption of fly ash will be so much that almost all the ash that is currently being generated today will get utilized. Moreover, the ash that is lying as legacy ash in ash dikes all around the world, those ash will also be getting pumped out and marketed. So revenue again can be generated from waste by the country.
Very good, very good. Now you also mentioned that you also have done some work on patent for these. So explain what that patent is all about, and what does it cover?
Well, actually, we have filed 2 patents. The first one is basically a patent on mixed design. See, when I said I am incorporating fly ash and bottom ash in a quantity equivalent to 500 or 600 kg per MQ, we had to tweak the mix design, the concrete mix design a little bit. Uh, in a conventional mix design, in any concrete, the aim is to minimize the interparticle space, or as we call it, the void spaces in between the particles. You're using aggregates or stones, and to fill up the gap in between the stones, you use filler materials such as river sand and such. And again, the cement that we use in concrete is actually the binder which holds all these sand and aggregate particles together. The complete aggregate and cement matrix as a whole is what we term as concrete. However, when you are eliminating the filler material, that is the river sand, you have to use equivalent product to act as a filler. But when I use fly ash and bottom ash, the overall fine content gets increased almost 3 times. That in that case, the concrete kind of loses, its homogeneity and its dense interpacking structure. So you have to tweak the mix design a little bit. You have to incorporate little varying proportion of aggregates and so on. And that is what the patent is about. We developed a new mix design and filed a patent for it. But since the patent is in my name as well as my supervisor, we are also, advising others how they can do it as well. See, if a patent is considered, it gets sold off or auctioned off. You cannot just give away the patent itself. But you can always, educate people. Since we are an education institution, I am a research scholar. As a part of our education outreach program, we are encouraging other people to work on the same area and develop the mix designs themselves. That way, they won't have to rely entirely on the patented technology. They won't have to buy it on a very high cost. They can also use it or develop it on their own. On the other hand, this patent also gives us an academic edge. As PhD scholar, it will actually help me in the course of my dissertation work, that I have a filed patent and I have developed a new technology that has not been discovered or invented till now. So the aim of the patent was that. The other patent that we filed was of admixture, and that actually is very interesting. As I said, my aim is to partner with commercially available manufacturers. So if those partners agree, I won't be selling off my patent. I will be, a part of that enterprise. I want to, nurture this idea, since I was the one, along with my supervisor, who developed this admixture. I saw it from the very beginning when it was just in a test tube. I want to see it grow on a large scale and see it manufactured on a large scale, so that it actually contributes to a country's development or the world's as such, improvement.
Very good, very good. So what's the status on the patents? Have they been awarded?
Sir, both the patents have been published and are currently under scrutiny. They are available online if you search for the either the content of the patent or via the patent number itself. So both of them have been published and they are currently under scrutiny. Once the FER comes out, the first examination report comes out, then they will be granted. So I'm guessing it will take another 6 to 12 months and they will be out on the market.
Very good, very good. So, so what's next for you? You've done such a great work in very short period of time, which covered not only your lab work, analytical work, field work. You have a host of publications to your name, more coming, I guess, the future as well, I'm assuming. You have a couple of patents that are in the pipeline. So in 3 years, you have done huge amount of work. For a PhD scholar to do this, it's great. So very good, excellent, proud of you, and great work. So what's next for you? Where do you see yourself personally moving forward?
My aim is not to, just continue with academia. Of course, since I'm a research scholar, I'll be somehow related to the academia industry as such. via through outreach programs or via through educational or conferences and such, I'll somehow always be linked to this industry. However, now I have a more broad mindset. I'm not gonna be limiting myself behind a chair. Uh, as I said, I have been a professor for almost 8 years, and as noble a job as being a professor is, I feel I can actually make an impact if I go out as a freelancer in the field. So I'm actually planning to grow a startup once I pass out my PhD, and tying up with commercially available admixture manufacturers. That way, the idea will always be the same. I'll be the one who will be governing the quality control aspect of any admixture generation or any mixed design consultation that a client does. I'll be the overall in charge of the quality control aspect, and the partners that I hopefully have in the future, they will be in charge of commercial manufacture. So that is my plan for future. I'm hoping 5 years down the road, I'll have my own company standing proudly in the market and competing with leading manufacturers. So fingers crossed for that.
I wish you all the best, and I hope really it happens. Because you have all the foundations, you've done all the hard work to get up to this point. So I think my best wishes are with you, and anything that we can help, do let us know.
Definitely.
That is wonderful. So thanks again, Titej, for finding time on a busy weekend. I know weekends are not a holiday for a research scholar. You work 24/7.
Definitely.
So you're still working, you're still in the lab, putting your hours there. And it is not easy to remain motivated because you're a lone fighter. You're by yourself. You have to find a way to get up in the morning and change things and make it work. So it's not easy what you have gone through. So congratulations, and I wish you lots of best time in the future for your venture, for your startup, for your publications, and I think if it can add value to the world in terms of environmental footprint, in terms of reducing the carbon emissions, changing the way we look at concrete design and admixtures, I think that'll be in a boon. It will change the way we think about construction materials.
But I was quite lucky in this respect, in this aspect. I was blessed with a very, very nice person as a PhD supervisor. He was also my best friend through all of this. He held my hand and, actually led me through the tough times. So there were times, as you said, when I was pretty close to giving up. I was pretty close to breaking down. I almost cried many times in the lab. And at that time, it was my supervisor who held me up. And he always used to say something in Hindi. I'll translate it later. He always used to say, नहीं हुआ तो नहीं हुआ, मार्केट बहुत बड़ा है, दुनिया बहुत बड़ी है, तुम्हारी जिंदगी बहुत बड़ी है, you'll achieve it in the end. So which translates to, if it doesn't pan out, it doesn't pan out. The world is big. The career prospects you have is endless. Your life is still in the growing stage. You still have multiple years. Don't lose hope, don't give up. You'll find something. If this doesn't work out, don't worry, don't cry, do something else. The world is your ocean and you're an oyster. Just go with the flow.
Well said, and that's really a good way to end this, because the reason why we created this segment of the is and we call it Voices from the Lab, because you know what, everybody sees the paper, everybody sees the research that's out there, nice fancy PowerPoints, but there's a lot of things that happen in the lab. That's where the real struggle is. And so unless we get that out and tell the world of how research is done from the ground up level, I think we wouldn't know. And that's our motto. Research is beautiful. And what you have done is exactly that. Research is beautiful. So again, thank you very much. And wish you all the best. And we will be in touch.